Welcome to the channel. If epic sci-fi stories are your thing, you've just found your new home. Subscribe, like, and share the adventure. The first thing Commander Kale noticed about Earth wasn't its beauty, it was its silence. Standing on the observation deck of the Galactic survey vessel Horizon's Edge, he watched the blue-green marble turn slowly beneath them, untouched by the chi. Sprawling city lights that marked every civilized world in the galaxy. No orbital stations, no defensive grids. No response to their hails, just ... nothing. "Scanners confirm it, sir," Lieutenant Vera reported, her voice carrying that particular mixture of confusion and unease that came with discovering something that shouldn't exist. "The planet shows massive signs of previous industrial civilization. Atmospheric composition indicates heavy manufacturing, agriculture, even nuclear activity. But current readings show minimal technological signatures." Kale nodded grimly. In his 30 years of survey work, he'd seen this pattern exactly 17 times before. The aftermath of species-wide extinction events. Wars, plagues, environmental collapse. The galaxy was littered with the bones of civilizations that had reached for the stars only to fall back into the dark. "Another ghost world," he murmured, making a note in his log. The Galactic Council would catalog it, mark it as uninhabitable pending ecological recovery, and move on. Standard procedure for dead worlds. That's when the proximity alarm started. Screaming, "Sir!" Vera's fingers flew across her console. Multiple contacts rising from the planet's surface. Velocity. Impossible. They're accelerating at rates that should liquefy any organic crew. Kale's blood turned to ice as his tactical display lit up like a festival. Dozens of craft primitive by galactic standards, burning chemical fuel like museum pieces, but moving with a precision and aggression that made his combat-trained instincts howl warnings. Shields up, evasive maneuvers. He barked, but the attacking craft were already there, weaving between his ship's defensive turrets with impossible grace. Energy weapons crude but effective lanced out from the primitive vessels, striking with surgical precision at non-vital systems, his communications. Officer looked up, pale-faced. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only." "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was unmistakably alien to Kale's ears, yet carried something he'd learned to recognize across 1,000 different species. Controlled fury. "Unknown. Vessel, you have violated the sovereign space of Earth. You have 30 seconds to explain your presence, or we will assume hostile intent. This is your only warning." Kale felt his world shift. Ghost worlds didn't issue warnings. Ghost worlds didn't have defense fleets. Ghost worlds certainly didn't speak with the calm, measured tone of a species that had looked death in the face and chosen to keep fighting. "This is Commander Kale of the Galactic Survey Corps," he transmitted back, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around his ship. "We detected no active civilization on preliminary scans. We came in peace, seeking to catalog and potentially assist in planetary recovery." A pause. "Then, you scanned us and found nothing? Interesting. Stand down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. We'll discuss your peaceful intentions face to face." Kale looked around his bridge at faces that mirrored his own shock. In all his years of first contact protocols, he'd never encountered a species that had been written off as extinct, only to prove very much alive and very, very angry about being disturbed. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. As the boarding craft approached, Kale found himself wondering what kind of species survived their own extinction event and came back stronger. What kind of world could hide an entire civilization from the galaxy's most advanced sensors? He was about to find out. The airlock hissed open with a sound that somehow managed to be both mechanical and organic, a wet, breathing sort of noise that made every hair on Kale's neck stand upright. What stepped through defied every first contact protocol in the Galactic Survey Manual. The creature was bipedal, roughly his height, with features that seemed hauntingly familiar yet utterly wrong. Pale skin stretched over sharp bone structure, two eyes that held depths of intelligence that bordered on unsettling, and a mouth that curved in what might have been a smile if it hadn't been so devoid of warmth. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Force," the being said, its voice carrying that same controlled fury from the transmission. "And you, Commander Kale, have made a very interesting mistake." Kale had conducted first contact with over 40 different species. He'd met beings of crystalline intelligence, hive minds that spoke in harmonic frequencies, even entities that existed partially in other dimensions. None of them had made him feel quite so small. "Captain Morrison," Kale began, falling back. "On diplomatic training, I assure you, the Galactic Survey Corps meant no harm. Our sensors indicated this was an uninhabited world recovering from some form of extinction event." Morrison's laugh was like breaking glass. "Extinction event? Yes, I suppose that's what it would look like from the outside." He gestured for Kale to follow him down the corridor. "Tell me, Commander, in your experience, how many species survive contact with the Devourer swarms?" Kale's steps faltered. The Devourer swarms were legend nightmares spoken of in hushed tones in the darkest corners of galactic civilization. Self-replicating machines that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space and whispered warnings. "None," he said quietly. "No species has ever survived a Devourer incursion." "That's what we thought too," Morrison said, leading him into what appeared to be a conference room. The walls were covered with images, cities reduced to rubble, skies dark, with mechanical horrors and beings that looked remarkably like Morrison himself, fighting with weapons that seemed barely adequate for the task. "The swarms came to Earth 73 years ago," Morrison continued, his voice taking on the cadence of a man who had told this story many times, each telling carving the words deeper into his soul. "We were young, barely space-capable, squabbling among ourselves like children. When the first Devourer scouts arrived, we couldn't even comprehend what we were looking at." Kale studied the images with growing horror. "But you survived." "Barely." Morrison touched one of the pictures, a group of humans standing in the ruins of what might once have been a great city. "We learned something about ourselves during those dark years, Commander. Something that I think your Galactic Council might find instructive." "What did you learn?" Morrison's smile returned, and this time it carried genuine warmth, which somehow made it even more terrifying. "We learned that humans don't know how to quit. We learned that when faced with extinction, we don't accept it gracefully. We spit in its face and ask for another round." He activated a holographic display, showing the solar system as it existed now. Where Kale's sensors had detected only primitive industrial activity, the display revealed a web of hidden facilities, asteroid mining operations, and defensive platforms that would make the Galactic Fleet's finest admirals weep with envy. "You see, Commander, the thing about fighting for your life against impossible odds is that it teaches you to be creative, to hide, to strike from shadows, to make the enemy think you're already dead while you sharpen your knives." Kale felt his understanding of the universe shift slightly. "You've been preparing." "For 73 years, Morrison confirmed. "We've been watching your Galactic Council, your trade routes, your military movements. We've been learning your languages, studying your technology, understanding your weaknesses." "For what purpose?" Morrison's expression darkened. "Because the Devourers aren't gone, Commander. They're sleeping, waiting, rebuilding in the dark spaces between stars. And when they return, and they will return, we intend to be ready." He leaned forward, and Kale saw something in those two human eyes that made his breath catch. Not anger, Not fear, but a cold, burning determination that spoke of a species that had looked into the abyss and decided to burn it down. The question is, Commander Kale, when that day comes, will your Galactic Council stand with us? Or will you run like you did last time? The journey to Earth's surface took 3 hours, but Kale felt as if he'd been traveling for days. Morrison's words echoed in his mind, each revelation more disturbing than the last. The Galactic Council hadn't just failed to help Earth, they'd actively quarantined the system, marking it as a loss and moving on. "We monitored your communications," Morrison explained as their shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. "Your council wrote us off in their reports. Total population loss, ecosystem compromised, recommend long-term quarantine, very clinical." Below them, what had appeared to be empty wilderness from orbit revealed itself to be something far more sophisticated. Cities that blended seamlessly with the natural landscape, transportation networks that moved beneath the surface, agricultural systems that worked in harmony with recovered ecosystems rather than dominating them. "How?" Kale asked, genuinely awed by the scale of concealment. "Our sensors are the most advanced in the galaxy." Morrison's pilot, a woman who'd been introduced simply as Lee, glanced back with an expression that might have been pity. "Your sensors look for the signatures of your own technology. You expect everyone to follow your developmental path, massive energy outputs, orbital platforms, subspace communications. You never considered that a species might choose to hide." The shuttle touched down in what appeared to be a natural clearing. But Kale could see the subtle signs of engineering, landing lights disguised as bioluminescent plants, fuel lines hidden beneath artificial root systems, defensive positions camouflaged as natural rock formations. "Welcome to Haven Base," Morrison said as they disembarked. "Population, approximately 12,000. Just one of roughly 800 similar installations worldwide." Kale did the mathematics in his head and felt his knees weaken. "You're saying Earth's population is just over 6 million, Morrison confirmed. "Down from roughly 8 billion. Before the swarms. Every single one of us is here because someone else died protecting them. We don't forget that." They walked through Haven Base, and Kale found himself studying the faces of the humans they passed. These weren't the desperate survivors he'd expected to find. These were engineers, scientists, soldiers, teachers, people who'd taken the worst catastrophe imaginable and turned it into a foundation for something stronger. In the Central Command Center, Morrison introduced him to Director Anna Hayes, a woman whose calm demeanor couldn't quite hide the steel beneath. "Commander Kale," she said, extending her hand in what he recognized as a human greeting. "We've been following your career with interest. You know about me?" "We know about everyone," Hayes replied matter-of-factly. "Your file makes interesting reading. 30 years of survey work, 17 ghost world discoveries, 3 first contact situations. Exemplary record, except for one thing." Kale waited. "You never asked the right questions," Morrison said, settling into a chair beside Hayes. "You see a dead world and move on. You never wonder why it died, or if it might not be as dead as it appears." Hayes activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from Earth's perspective. "The Devourers didn't just attack randomly, Commander. They followed a pattern, hitting the most advanced civilizations first, working their way down the technological ladder. Earth was supposed to be a minor cleanup operation. But you fought back." "We more than fought back," Hayes said, her voice carrying quiet pride. "We learned, we adapted. We discovered something about the Devourers that your council never figured out in all their years of running away." She manipulated the display, showing tactical analyses that made Kale's military training sing with recognition. These weren't the desperate last stands of a dying species. These were sophisticated strategic assessments, with countermeasures and contingency plans that put galactic fleet doctrine to shame. "They're not invincible," Morrison continued. "They're predictable. They follow programmed behaviors, adapt slowly, rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical innovation. Everything they are works against a static defense. But not against us, Hayes added with a smile that held all the warmth missing from Morrison's. Humans have a talent for being unpredictable. Cale studied the tactical displays, his mind racing. You're preparing for their return. We're preparing to end them, Morrison corrected, permanently. We've spent 70 years learning everything there is to know about Devourer technology, psychology, tactics. We've built weapons they can't adapt to, strategies they can't counter. And when they come back, Hayes said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty, we're going to show them why Earth didn't stay dead. Cale looked around the command center at faces that belonged to a species that had survived the impossible and chosen to prepare for the next impossibility. For the first time in his career, he found himself wondering if the Galactic Council had been wrong about more than just Earth's status. Maybe they'd been wrong about everything. The war room beneath Haven Base stretched further than Cale's eyes. Could follow, carved from living rock and filled with the quiet hum of technology that defied everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. Holographic displays showed real-time monitoring of deep space sectors, while teams of analysts tracked energy signatures that wouldn't be visible to galactic sensors for another 50 years. The Devourers follow a cycle, Hayes explained, guiding him past displays that showed mathematical models of staggering complexity. Roughly every 100 years they emerge from dormancy, harvest what they can, then retreat to rebuild. We've been tracking their patterns since the attack. Morrison joined them at a central display that showed the galaxy divided into colored sectors. Red zones are systems they've already consumed. Yellow zones are probable next targets. Green zones are what they consider too primitive to bother with. Cale studied the pattern, his tactical training filling in the implications. They're systematic, obsessively so, Hayes confirmed, which is both their strength and their weakness. They don't adapt well to unexpected variables, like a species that refuses to die when it's supposed to. Morrison's smile was sharp as a blade. Exactly. Commander, what do you know about the Veil incident? Cale frowned. The what? 47 years ago, a galactic fleet patrol encountered what they thought was a small Devourer scouting force near the Veil Nebula. Standard protocol was to retreat and report, but something went wrong. The entire patrol was destroyed, and the incident was classified at the highest levels. Hayes activated another display, showing tactical recordings that made Cale's blood run cold. The footage showed galactic fleet vessels, his own people, being torn apart by machines that moved with horrifying efficiency. What the Council never revealed, Morrison continued, is that those weren't random scouts. They were advance reconnaissance for the next harvest cycle. The Devourers have been preparing for their return, just like we have. The difference, Hayes added, is that we've been preparing to win. She led them to a sealed chamber where a single object sat under protective fields. It looked like nothing more than a twisted piece of metal, but something about it made Cale's skin crawl. Devourer. Core fragment, Morrison explained. Took us 20 years to capture one intact. Another 10 to understand how it works. 5 more to figure out how to kill it permanently. The key, Hayes said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, is that they're not just machines. There's something else wearing machine bodies. Something that exists partially in subspace, partially in normal space. That's why conventional weapons only slow them down. Cale stared at the fragment, understanding beginning to dawn. But you found a way to reach both aspects. We found a way to sever the connection, Morrison confirmed. Permanently. No regeneration, no backup systems, no retreat to rebuild. When we kill them, they stay dead. Hayes activated a final display, showing weapon systems that incorporated technologies Cale had never seen before. We call it the Echo Protocol. It creates a resonance cascade that propagates through subspace, targeting the quantum signatures specific to Devourer consciousness. How many can you target at once? Morrison's smile became something predatory. All of them. Every Devourer. In the galaxy, simultaneously. One shot, total extinction. Cale felt the universe shift around him again. You're talking about genocide? No, Hayes said quietly. We're talking about ending a genocide that's been going on for millennia. The Devourers have consumed hundreds of species, Commander. They've turned entire sectors of the galaxy into graveyards. We're talking about making sure they never do it again. But to do it, Morrison added, we need something we don't have. What? A way to get close enough to deploy the weapon without triggering their defenses. The Echo Protocol requires proximity to their primary fleet, and they'll be expecting us this time. Hayes pulled up star charts showing the predicted return routes. They'll come through the Kepler corridor, massed in formation, ready for systematic conquest. Our stealth technology can get us close, but not close enough. Cale studied the tactical situation, his mind racing through possibilities. Unless ... quote. Unless what, Commander? He looked up at their faces, seeing hope and determination. In equal measure. Unless they thought the Galactic Fleet was there to stop them. If they were focused on a conventional threat. Morrison leaned forward. You're suggesting we coordinate with the Council? I'm suggesting, Cale said carefully, that maybe it's time the galaxy knew the truth about Earth. About what you've accomplished. About what's coming. Hayes and Morrison exchanged a look that carried decades of shared experience. The Council abandoned us once, Morrison said finally. Why would they stand with us now? Cale thought about everything he'd seen, everything he'd learned. About the assumptions the galaxy had made, and the price of being wrong. Because, he said, this time they'll know they're not fighting alone. The Galactic Council chamber had never been quieter. Cale stood before the assembled representatives of 300 species, watching their faces as he delivered his report. Shock, disbelief, fear, and slowly, gradually, something that might have been hope. You're asking us to believe, Chancellor Voss said, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's lights into nervous patterns, that not only did Earth survive the Devourer swarms, but they've developed a weapon capable of ending the threat permanently? I'm not asking you to believe anything, Cale replied steadily. I'm reporting what I witnessed, what I documented. The evidence is all there in my logs. Admiral Thorne of the Centauri Defense Force leaned forward. Even if this is true, why should we trust them? A species that's been hiding from us for 7 decades suddenly wants our help? Before Cale could respond, the chamber's main screen activated. Morrison's face appeared, broadcast from Earth's surface with a clarity that shouldn't have been possible through the Council's most secure communications. Because, Admiral, Morrison said calmly, you don't have a choice. The chamber erupted. In confusion as security protocols failed to trace the signal's origin. Morrison waited patiently for the noise to subside. By our calculations, the Devourer fleet will arrive in the Kepler corridor in 18 months. They'll be expecting to find the galaxy exactly as they left it, scattered, defensive, reactive. Instead, they're going to find something they've never encountered before. The display behind Morrison showed tactical projections that made several Council members gasp. A coordinated defense incorporating not just human technology, but improvements to Galactic Fleet doctrine that transformed defensive strategies into aggressive countermeasures. We're offering you a partnership, Morrison continued. Your fleets provide the visible threat that keeps them focused on conventional tactics. Our technology provides the killing blow that ends them forever. Chancellor Voss's voice carried undertones of barely controlled panic. And if we refuse? Morrison's smile was gentle and absolutely terrifying. Then in 18 months, when the Devourers finish consuming the Council worlds, Earth will still be here. We'll mourn your passing, and we'll avenge you. You can't be serious, Admiral Thorne said. One world against the Devourer fleet. Not one world, Morrison corrected. One species that learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. When you can't run, when you can't hide, when everything you are is about to be erased from existence, you fight. Not because you think you can win, but because the alternative is unacceptable. Cale watched the faces around him, seeing understanding dawn. These beings had spent generations managing the Devourer threat, containing it, working around it. They'd never considered that it might be possible to end it. Director Hayes joined Morrison on the screen. We've transmitted the technical specifications for the Echo Protocol to your science councils. Your best minds will confirm what we already know. It will work. The question is whether you want to be part of the solution, or just another species that the Devourers have to go through to get to us. Why? Chancellor Voss asked suddenly. Why offer this to us at all? You could have remained hidden, let us face them alone. Hayes's expression softened. Because despite everything, despite being abandoned and forgotten, we're still part of this galaxy. The Devourers took 8 billion of our people, but they didn't take our humanity. We won't let them take yours either. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that had every reason to hate the galaxy had instead chosen to save it. Admiral Thorne was the first to speak. What do you need from us? Morrison's tactical display updated, showing fleet positions and coordination protocols. Everything you have. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical innovation you've developed. This isn't just about Earth's survival. Anymore, it's about whether the galaxy has a future. Cale stepped forward. I've seen what they've built. I've seen what they're capable of. The Devourers think they're returning to harvest a helpless galaxy. Instead, they're going to find a galaxy that's learned to fight back. Chancellor Voss's form blazed brighter as she processed the decision. The Council recognizes the sovereignty of Earth and accepts the proposed alliance. May the stars forgive us for waiting so long to ask, but welcome back to the galaxy. Morrison's smile was the first genuinely warm expression Cale had seen from him. Thank you, Chancellor, but we never left. We've been here all along waiting for the rest of you to catch up. The screen went dark, but the chamber remained illuminated by the reflected light of hope. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a plan that didn't involve running from the dark between the stars. In 18 months, they would discover whether the children of Earth had learned their lessons well enough to become the galaxy's teachers.